what really piqued my interest, switching me from like the bodybuilding bro split type stuff into actual strength training and powerlifting, was watching Dan Green in the animal cage deadlift beltless 900 pounds.
Yep.
And his body weight, what he competed at, he was probably one of the greatest 242 ever. And of course, that was me seeing that and just watching it over and over. And I'm like, how the hell do you get there?
All right, so let's start off with some quick rapid fire questions for
Ooh,
you. All right, rank the lifts: squat, bench, deadlift.
ooh. um, so as the years have gone on, I will say things have changed around because it used to be deadlift, bench, squat, but now it's squat, bench, deadlift for me. And those are, yeah,
Wow.
squat has for sure taken the top, taken the top.
How deadlift has fallen.
But it's all right. It'll come back.
Yeah, he's still there hanging
He's
on.
still, yeah, he's still there, personally. So like personally, sure. But I also think it's like because nowadays that's all you see is deadlift specialists. So it's
Yeah,
like, well, what about your squat and your bench? And then you look at that, and it's like they'll still be pretty good, but it's like no, like it's nowhere near your deadlift. You know what I'm saying? Like you got those leverages, those long ass arms. And, so of course you can lift so much this far off the floor.
yeah.
So I guess that's kind of another reason as to why deadlift has fallen for me.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm sure we'll get into it later, but I like too that you don't have to just resign yourself to the fact of oh, I'm a bad squat or I'm a bad bencher.
Right. Right.
You
Exactly.
can
No,
choose to prioritize as needed.
exactly. As needed. Exactly. Because there, I mean, even
Yeah.
through training, as you've seen with yourself and with others, like sometimes what somebody's best lift might end up taking a back seat during like a certain stage. Everything else starts to climb, and then eventually that one comes back up. You know what I mean? So
Yep. Yeah.
it kind of all just interchanges for people personally, and including myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Can't have all three at once.
no, 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 can't have it all, baby.
All right. Give me an underrated accessory.
Ooh, I'd have to say JM presses. I feel like not
Mm,
not enough people utilize that.
my
And you
favorite.
shouted me out on that exactly, exactly. Because like
Yeah.
JMs, man, those will build your triceps whether you're just trying to get them bigger or you're trying to get them stronger and get that bench lock out right.
Yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are we talking about all three for all three lifts or like what? What you thinking?
Yeah, if you got them, yeah, sure.
Ooh, all right. Um, I would say, and not for nothing, this goes for. It can go for both the squat and the deadlift, but good mornings.
Mm,
I feel like
yes.
not enough people utilize that movement, and it's old school. You could use a straight bar, a SSB, a cambered, just to kind of change it up. Of course, you know me, I'm a conjugate guy, so against accommodating resistance, bands, chains.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man, like when it comes to that movement, I mean, for one, it builds the posterior, so of course, especially if you are a conventional puller, that's going to carry over very well. But I also like to treat it as like a fail safe for squat.
Mm,
So
yep.
if things go haywire, right, and your hips shoot up a little bit, and that weight kind of comes forward on you, you should still be at least strong enough to save it safely. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Obviously,
Yeah.
if it's just way too far gone, hopefully you got somebody there to help you. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah.
honestly, I would say those two are my top for like underrated, underrated.
Yeah. I like those. Both very good movements. All right. Favorite variation bar. Kind of already touched on it, but
Oh, yeah, I would say bow bar. I would say bow bar. Mainly because it'll give your shoulders, elbows a little bit of a break in the squat.
hmm
And then as well as with deadlift. I like to consider that kind of like a deficit bench. Or I said deadlift, Jesus. Bench. I consider that more like a deficit bench because you get that crazy stretch in the bottom. So it's like it's definitely that type
Yeah.
of bar that the stronger that you get at it, for sure, once you go back to a straight bar, it's going up.
It'll feel easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then like even just the minor things when it comes to it, because it's got that little camber in it that it'll kind of show like say in the squat if it starts to kind of wiggle on you, it's
Mm,
showing me that you're not keeping your back as tight or your back's not that strong to stay tight. So
yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I like looking at all the different little things, not just that bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
good
good
stuff.
point too, that it kind of points out your weak points as well.
Mhm.
Even on bench, if it starts to wiggle, you might have weak forearms or even just
Exactly.
wrists, elbows.
Exactly. Exactly my point.
Yeah. That's a good one. Very
Yeah,
versatile.
absolutely. Ooh.
Okay. So I prepared you a little bit for this, but I would like to hear kind of your journey through when
Oh,
when you so kind of you're getting into the gym from a younger person or sports, and then how that has kind of progressed through your life and how you kind of fell into powerlifting and even where you started and where you're at now.
um, so through life as a child, when it came to like sports and things like that, I was very big on baseball, and that was the main sport that I had played like through the years from basically a kid like t-ball all the way up to high school. Never actually played for the school, but like that was just always my sport of choice. I don't know if it's because I'm Puerto Rican or what, but Latinos love their baseball. Right? So when it comes to that, that's mainly my sport, and it's not, of course, as aggressive as anything else, like in terms of like football, rugby, soccer, things where you really had to be fast, high endurance. But you still had to be explosive. You still had to be pretty strong for it. I was always still the bigger kid, but I could move. That was
Hmm.
always my thing. Is like even being a bigger kid, I could actually still move, and like it was always pretty cool when people are like, "Damn, like that's impressive that you can move that way at that body weight." But
Hmm.
um, and then even as a kid, I was very big into martial arts. So I was doing Tang Sudo, which is basically a Korean martial arts, and
Hmm.
it taught me a lot of discipline. I was very, very, very deep in it, and to the point where I actually became, for them, a black belt at like 11 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, like that was for sure something that I do wish I would have kept up on.
Hmm.
Um, but I still carry a lot of what I learned from that through life. But then as I got older, I kind of fell away from that because we ended up moving away, and things just kind of weren't the same. And kind of how that is, where even with a gym, sometimes you go to a certain gym, it's not going to be the same vibe or anything as another. Though those vibes can come, right, over
Yeah.
time. But some gyms don't have that community aspect if that's what you're looking for. Just to
Yeah.
kind of compare that. So I just kind of fell off from it and got into other things because as I'm growing up, had a lot of loss in the family, including my father at a very young age.
Mm.
And that's kind of where things turned for a little bit. And, just falling in with the wrong people, not really um, focusing on goals or anything in life, not worrying about that at all. Just, I guess, living in the moment, but being a POS, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, as most of us were, right?
Yeah. At some point.
That's fine. Um, but then fast forward to probably around like 2015, 2016. That's when I really kind of started getting into just lifting more um, seriously and making it a habit. So me and my boy Mike, we met each other at work and we started getting into watching guys like CT Fletcher, Mike Rashid, all those guys like that at that time that were big on YouTube, and we're just like, oh yeah, like they're making it like badass, like with the motivation. Everybody knows CT is still your motherfucking set, stuff like that. Overtrain, yeah, go so you throw up. So,
Yep.
of course, we were trying, like most people, I started off at Planet. And I was going to the one in Wilmington on the riverfront in Delaware, for those of you that aren't familiar with Delaware. Um, and then from there, I was probably there for like 2 years, one to 2 years.
Mm.
And, I just developed that habit every day. I wouldn't feel right unless I went and lifted something. So,
Mm.
but then I eventually outgrew that gym.
So what was your, sorry to interrupt, what
No,
was your
you're fine. You're
training schedule looking like? Like, what
fine.
was your program looking like at that point?
So, of course, starting off, it was like every day would be like chest, every day would be arms, like
Yeah.
it was just that bro stuff. But
Yep.
we were training legs too. And I feel like a lot of people kind of looked at us because we knew legs were for sure important. And, like watching them guys, they're like, yeah, you want to be able to crack the sidewalk. And we're like, yeah, we got to get our legs up, bro.
Mm.
So, of course, in Planet, people would see how hard we were going on legs and just look at us crooked like, bro, what are you doing? Like, just hit the bench. Like, what are you doing?
You don't need those.
You
Yeah.
don't need those. Who trains legs? But yeah, no, it was literally just some regular bro stuff, and then that is kind of when I started doing my own little research, actually, because I did become very interested in programming
Mm.
and like how can I make this actually efficient rather than just coming in here and doing whatever. Because after a while, of course, my shoulders started getting beat up, elbows, doing the same thing, knees, just doing the same thing, pushing, 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 going to failure all the damn time and just exhausting everything.
Yeah.
So I started doing a lot of reading and then even ended up picking up that classic Arnold encyclopedia.
Mm.
And it's like, I mean, who better to look at because he's one of the greatest bodybuilders, right? So who better to look at than his style of training and programming and stuff? So then I started kind of doing that and then following that.
Okay.
Um, and then eventually, yeah, what I was saying was like I outgrew Planet. I knew I needed something bigger, something a little more motivating, and found my way to the TC. And that would have been
Wow.
like in 2017 into 2018 is when I got there.
Okay.
And from there, I started seeing the bigger, stronger guys powerlifting,
Yep.
and I'm just like, man, like those dudes are crazy. Like, of course, I was just looking at them like, man, like that's wild. Like they're lifting stuff. But what really piqued my interest, switching me from like the bodybuilding, bro split type stuff into the actual strength training and powerlifting, was watching Dan Green in the animal cage deadlift beltless 900 pounds.
Yep.
And his body weight, what he competed at, he was probably one of the greatest 242 ever. And of course, that was me seeing that and just watching it over and over. And I'm like, how the hell do you get there?
Yeah.
So that's what started, really, really got me started getting interested into strength training and powerlifting.
Mm.
And then from there, again, doing more research, watching other guys. Like, well, actually, one of the main guys I started watching more was Brian Allsworth. He's a strong man, and he's based out of Maryland.
Okay.
Um, but he gave away a lot of good info on his YouTube channel, and including like free, um, like program outlines and stuff like
Mm.
that, and showing you how he breaks it down. And then that's where I really started becoming obsessed with the programming. I'm like, oh yeah. And then I tried a couple of different um, styles of training, different systems. So of course you got your regular linear. That took me, of course, like that was great to get started. Just adding pounds on there each week, trying to keep
Yeah.
up with the volume. Um, but then of course, like either starting over or learning like, I mean, learning the periodization stuff didn't come till like later. So I just kept trying to push it and push it.
Of course.
Um, and that's where I actually, through him, once again, learn about conjugate.
Mm.
And then that's where I started diving deep and then learned about West Side and Louis and all that. And I'm just like, yeah, these guys are badass. Like, and who doesn't like to train heavy? You know what I'm saying? Like, because they got the
Right.
max effort day, and it's like, oh yeah, like I want to touch singles, I want to touch doubles, you know, and just
Hmm.
use these crazy bars. Like, what the hell does this even do? Why?
Right. Yeah.
And then from there, that's the system that I ended up sticking with. And then in 2018, coming into 2019, I basically self-coached into my first meet, which was a USAPL Delaware State champ meet at this CrossFit gym that's like down 13. I can't remember the name of it.
Hmm.
And I mean, of course, going into your first meet, just like anybody else, like it's just fun.
Yeah.
But the training I did take seriously because I was like, oh yeah, like it took me forever to finally break past 455, and then once I broke past that, I started. My next goal was like 500, and
Hmm.
then it took me forever to get past that. Then I finally broke past that, climbed again, and I was looking good to pull my first 600 at that meet, my very first meet, and I got a little too excited. So it was a lesson learned. I got a little too excited, and I just went to try to grip it and rip it. I let everything go. Like a
Yep.
technique. I was just like, yeah, no. Missed it. I got it up to
All
like
your
my
cues just out the window.
all the cues were just out the window. I ripped it up to probably like mid shin and just got stuck. So,
Mm.
needless to say, I missed it. And then even then, and this is where I was like, squat was definitely at the bottom because I grinded for my life for 407. Man, like I always go back and look at that video just to like, of course, appreciate and see how far I have come from there.
Yeah,
As you should. You got to always reflect on everything.
absolutely. Yeah. Weight, technique, everything. Like, it's so cool to see the growth through the years.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's so cool to see. Like, you got to appreciate where you've come from. I feel like a lot of people kind of forget that, you know.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's basically like my journey into this and how I got into powerlifting, and then even
Hmm.
just the community itself at the time, amazing, because it is true. Like ultimately, are we going against each other? Absolutely, but I'm still gonna push you because I want you to try to beat me, and then I'm gonna try to
Yeah.
beat you. Like that's what makes this shit
Right.
fun. It's competitive, but it doesn't have to be like beef, bro. Like it's not that deep.
Right.
It's not that
Yeah.
deep. Yeah.
And I always feel like you can be my arch nemesis on meet day, but every other day, the other 364 days of the year, I can be your best friend. But then come meet day, you're my op.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
you don't have to carry that over into real life or into the gym.
Exactly. Exactly. Like
Yeah.
when we hit that platform, yeah, it's for sure me versus you, and I'm coming
Yeah.
for you. I'm gonna make
Yeah.
you work for this.
Yeah.
Because you even got to think about some of these pros. Now, granted, yes, like some people get a little too disrespectful, and I'm not even just talking powerlifting, but even take like UFC fighting, like they are physically trying to hurt each other in
Right.
the ring, but outside, a lot of those guys are best friends. They hang out. They know each other's families and stuff like that. And does it always
Yeah.
have to be like that? We don't got to be like best friends, no. But it's like we got to have that respect for each other, you know, because we're both
Absolutely.
in this. We're both
Yeah.
in this.
Yeah, we're both trying to achieve the same goal.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, not for nothing, like it's really cool to be able to do that together and then just inspire some of these other up and comers or people that don't maybe not even powerlift but like yeah just that watching you guys out there makes me just want to go harder in my own training
Yeah.
like because sometimes that gives the people the boost. It's like
Yep.
they see you put up something crazy and it's that great energy and then they're just like, oh yeah, I'm about to go back and hit this set real quick, like you
Yep.
know yeah, it's dope. It's dope.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're having one of those bad training weeks or blocks, sometimes you watch one of those meets where everyone's fired up and you're like, "Okay, I'm ready to go to the gym now and max out.
Exactly. Every time like one of my athletes competes, like even my coach, because like he's cool as hell, and he'll hit me up and be like, "Oh yeah, how they do?" And
Mm,
I'll tell him about it. I'll be like, "Yeah, they did amazing," or it just wasn't the day, or we just gotta go back to the drawing board, see what's up. But either way, after that, he'll be like, "It gives you the itch, doesn't it?" And I'm like,
hmm
"Absolutely." It makes me want to get back into a prep so bad. And
Yeah.
of course, people that know me that have been following, like I don't really compete too often. Uh,
hmm
last year was last year I did two meets, which both kind of sucked, and and that's both on me and not for nothing, but the way like the meets were kind of ran, they could have been better, but
Mm,
I don't ever really like blame anybody else but myself because I'm like I still should be able to perform.
right.
Um, but yeah, sometimes those outside factors do mess with you a bit, but it's
Yeah.
all good because the next one's gonna be it's gonna be good.
Oh yeah.
I gotta make up for it.
Can count on that.
Absolutely.
So then how did you end up finding your coach now and getting, because I know you went to Iron Sport for a little bit, but how'd you link up with him, and how long have you been with him now?
Shit, I've actually been with him since the end of 2019, literally coming into COVID.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I was looking at a couple of different people, and like how I spoke on Brian Allsrue before, um, I had like emailed him to see if he would take me on. Never got a response. There was another guy. Damn, see, I can't even forget his name. Not to sound like it, but he's obviously not a factor anymore. But he was like based out of Chicago, I want to say, and
Okay.
reached out to him, like emailed him, DM'd him, everything, no response. So I was like, all right, well, I'll come across the right one, or the right one will come across me. However, fate decides.
Yeah.
So I just kind of kept self coaching and still diving deeper into conjugate, trying to learn as much as I can about it, and then transfer it to make sense to like raw lifting because at that time, most of my career was raw powerlifting.
Mhm.
But of course, like when you look at Westside, that was more geared towards the equipped lifters.
Right.
Uh, but how I came across my coach was through my training partner Dan Sarmina. He was the one that actually came across him and found him at Iron Sport. Um, and then I had met him when he came down to the training center with Dan to take
Mhm.
him through like a session and stuff. And from there, we were talking, and I had met him at the beginning of 2019. So we basically knew each other for just about a year before I
Okay.
finally like hit him up and was like, "Hey, would you mind taking me on as an
Yeah.
athlete?" And his response was, "I have been waiting for this text for so long."
I love that.
That's where I was like, "Yes." And then, of course, learning even about him because the way I describe him is that he's probably one of the strongest people that you've never heard of.
Mhm.
And if I didn't say his name before, it's Mr. David Jenkinson. Um, and to kind of give a short brief about him and his career, let's just say at 242 body weight, that's where he would compete. His highest total was 2655, insane, and he totaled in the gym before even doing that 2800, and that's crazy,
Insane.
insane.
Hard to
Um,
even wrap your head around how that split would happen. Like,
right, and it's crazy because like of course if you met him outside, like you wouldn't really think about it. You wouldn't
mhm.
think of him as that. Like he's just very well spoken. He's from the UK, so of course he just automatically sounds more intelligent than the rest of us. But he is very, very knowledgeable. Like he came from the UK, got invited out to West Side, got to learn under one of the best, Louis. Um, did his thing. He was holding the deadlift world record for his weight class for a long time. But yeah, that whole first year, especially, like I would sit there and we would talk for hours, and I would try to retain all the information he's giving me. I would leave with that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's where I was just like, okay, like this is the one. This is the guy. Like the universe put him here, and I was just like, yes, okay. And I've been with
Yeah.
him since. And honestly, he's my first and probably will be my last coach. You know,
Hmm.
I just don't feel like it's not that I don't think anybody else is as good as him. That's not it at all. Um, I do believe like when it comes to your coach, like the whole relationships, the respect, um, how how they work with you. Like
Hmm.
we're always talking, we're always communicating. He's always asking how I'm feeling. He's telling me his plans, his thoughts, and then even asking me for my input. Like how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's also him respecting me, not just as an athlete, but as a coach as well.
Yep.
And everything's been great, and I've climbed a lot with him over the years. You know, so that's
Yeah.
my guy.
I think that's huge too, having that personal. You don't have to be friends like you guys are with your coach or anything like that, but
Right, right.
the trust has to go both ways, the respect has to go both ways, and you have to like and jive with them as a person as well. Like they could be the greatest coach in the world, but if you don't really either see eye to eye with them or you don't understand why you're doing certain things, or if you flat out just don't like them as a person, it's not
That's
you're
not
not going to
it.
perform well either.
Right. You're not going to perform well, and like he's the type, just like me, where if an athlete or even anybody outside like comes and asks a question, like, so why this and not that,
Right.
we give an answer.
Right.
Some coaches are just like, what, you don't trust me? Just follow the
Exactly.
program. And that's to me
Yep.
a red flag. A
Yeah.
red flag. Like I can understand the whole like if somebody is constantly how do you say challenging you, right? Like
Right.
everything that you do,
Right.
everything that you program, everything that you give to them, they're constantly just challenging. Like okay, those types of people can be a pain in the butt,
Right.
and that's where it's like maybe I'm not the guy for you. But when it's just a here and there thing, it's like you shouldn't, as a coach, be afraid to answer the damn question. Like,
Hmm.
and that's reinforcing their um, their faith in having you as a coach. You know what I'm saying? Okay,
Right.
like this guy or this girl know, like they know what they're talking about. So of course I'm gonna
Yeah.
listen. You know.
Right.
So
Yeah. And not to get like super corporate-y, but I feel like the people in my job, corporate America, the people who gatekeep because they're scared to lose their jobs, they're ultimately the ones who are going to lose their jobs. So as a coach, if you want to gatekeep all your secrets or whatever, you're just really doing yourself and everyone else a disservice. I feel like some of the most intelligent people, some of the best coaches, they have free programs out there online for people to download, or they make videos that are just on YouTube for anybody to watch. And I feel like that's how you kind of extend the torch to the next generation of great coaches.
absolutely, you shouldn't be like you said gatekeeping. You shouldn't be like just withholding the information like it's not a secret. And honestly, once those people, like you said, learn where to even seek this information out, they're going to come across it. And like
Yeah.
for me, look, like boom, here's a book, here's a book. Once they come across these, it's over. You know what I'm saying? Like come on, like just I have
Yeah.
no problem saying if you want to learn some basics, you should get this book.
Hmm.
And then if there is certain things, like especially if you are trying to be a coach of some sort, and you're in the process of learning, I'm always like, come and ask questions, man. I really don't have an issue answering them
Yeah.
at all. Or even if you're just somebody trying to program yourself, not even just be a coach, but like if you're just somebody that's trying to program yourself and take yourself through it, come and ask these questions and like
Yeah.
really, really, and then do your own research as well. Like don't just like
Yeah.
take what somebody says and then like that's it. Like do like take what
Right.
somebody says and then just kind of do your own research, and then where you really start to learn is applying it. So apply it to yourself, because like that's how I did the first year of coaching myself, or first basically like year and a half of coaching myself. Is I was taking what I was reading and being told and stuff like that, and then applying it to myself.
Right.
And then once I turned and then started like wanting to become an actual coach to coach other people and help other people, now I get to start applying it to them.
Right.
Because you can only learn but so much from a book. You can learn a lot, but a lot of that stuff there's different outliers. You know what I mean? Like of people, everybody's different. So once you apply it, whatever I might apply to you back in our day, whatever I might have applied to you might have not have worked for the next one.
Right.
Um, like that's where it's like, okay, now you got to be smart enough to be like, okay, so now I got to figure out what's going to work for that person. But obviously, if this is working for you, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep going,
Right. Yep.
you know. But then if we do come across something that doesn't seem to be working for you, well, now we got to pull that out and then put something else in there.
Right.
That's why I consider the gym a lab. We're all like scientists to an extent. Like, how can I create this super soldier? You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally.
And that's why I love this. Like, I've become so obsessed with this, and the learning just don't stop. There's always new science. There's always new information. But at the same point in time, it does always circle back around to the old stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so for a lot of things, not all, but for a lot of things.
Yeah. So with that being said, how has your programming, do you think, adapted from when you started coaching to how you coach now?
A lot, a lot. So because a lot of the things that West Side was like famous for in terms of like their training and programming was using a lot of the different bars, a lot of the bands, a lot of the chains. Um, so of course, naturally, I would throw a lot of that stuff on myself. I
Hmm.
would throw a lot of it on the my first people. I'll say my first people, um, and then even because like I said, when you follow the actual West Side way, that was created and geared more towards like the equipped lifters. So they would work on a lot of top end strength, right? Because in the
Right.
gear, it it'll to an extent help you out of the hole. Like in the squat, on in the bench, it'll help you off the chest. Deadlift is like the only one that's like you might not get a lot out of the gear. But I will
Hmm.
say, because I'm sure maybe we might touch on it, but my experience now with deadlifting in gear is it's so hard. It's so hard. But so learning that I'm not working with equipped lifters, that I'm working with raw lifters.
Right.
How how do I switch this around to where it's going to benefit the raw lifters? So that's where learning that, okay, not completely doing away with top end strength, but for sure putting that more on the back burner. So we need to work on full range or that bottom end, because everybody's
Hmm.
always pretty much weaker there. Like in a raw squat, I feel like most people are weak out of the hole. So
Yeah.
learning, doing things like pause squats, still incorporating box squats, but things that are maybe lower than parallel. Um,
Right.
bands and chains don't have to be hung on everything. That you should get strong first with straight weight, work on technique, and then as they get stronger, now we can start introducing some kind of accommodating resistance because they can now handle it.
Right.
Um, speed work, right? So we have our max effort days and our dynamic days. Um, it used to be a thing where just learning it, watching the videos that like say with the bench, it's speed work, right? Like it just looks crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but learning, and then this is where my coach came into play, right? Where he's like, it's important to be fast, but you have to be strong first.
Mm.
So that's where I learned to scale that back and work. Once again, you should always, technique is always a big thing with this because strength is a skill.
Right.
Um, but building that strength first, and then start working on that acceleration, working on it, and increasing that rate of force production.
Yeah.
Whether it's straight weight, whether it's with the bands, whatever the case is. And like, this is such a good question because it's so like my programming itself has truly evolved because even with say like deloads, now I don't my own reading and my own experiences when it comes to deloading, some people now I can see it depending on how long your blocks are. Of course, like if you push it out 5, 6 weeks, however long they are, of course at some point you're probably gonna really need that whole week of deloading, right? You're just
Right.
gonna be beat to hell. But I've kind of um, added in that fourth week because usually we do 3 week waves. So where and that's all based around our dynamic work. So we'll wave the weeks up. So one week you start with a certain percentage on all the lists for your dynamic work. Next week you increase it. Third week you increase it, and then you swing it back down.
Hmm.
So in a way, I still do that, but I add in a mini deload every fourth week. So
Okay.
the beginning of the week, your max effort days, that's where we take that step back. Um, and it'll either sometimes it fluctuates depending on how beat up the athlete might feel and what they communicate to me. So it might be like 65% of their max for like a 3x3, something nice and light.
Hmm.
Or if they're not too beat up, so let's not scale back too much. It might be like 80% for a single, still
Right.
very light, right?
Yeah.
um, but then on my dynamic days, rather than just getting right back into it, I use that as somewhat of like a reload
Mm.
day. So after taking a little step back, now we're starting to put something a little bit heavier. So it'll be between like 85 and 87%. And that'll be for like a single and or a double on each lift. And then that's kind of just easing them back into that following week where we're starting a whole new program, and then we can kind of they come in still fresh and then can dive right back into it, hit those max effort days, and everybody feels good. And not for nothing, I've been seeing a lot of success with that.
Mm.
You know, yeah, like everybody's been like, and I feel like it kind of allows me to when it's needed push them a little bit harder for those first 3 weeks, and then they're like, oh,
Yeah.
thank God next week's mini dealer.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, if you
but
can plan for that, especially as an athlete, it gives you a reason to push too, because you know you're gonna have that week where, okay, I can breathe, my joints can recover a little, uh, but let me earn it.
yeah, exactly. So and it allows them to push it, and then like even in terms of the progressions over the week, I always try to tell people, like especially with their accessories, even their main movers, like just because it's max effort doesn't mean it has to be an RPE 10 all the time. You don't have to grind everything
Right.
out, because you will just fry yourself up, So it'll be more of like a yeah, sure, all right, like week one for max effort, let's push it to like an RPE 8.5, 8.5, right? So
Hmm.
there's really good stimulus there, um, and we're handling some decent weight, and then all the accessories to follow, I'll say keep that around the same, like an RP maybe 7.5, 8, or I'll say even like, all right, leave like a rep or two in the tank, right, for your
Right.
accessories. That way, as the weeks go on, we just build off of that, and then the next week for a main mover, okay, let's push it RP 8.5, 9, right, and then accessories push it a little bit more. Like I just like to try to teach people to regulate to where we're not just killing ourselves all the way through, so that by the time we get to week three, we're just seared on all sides,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a little bit as to how my own programming for my people have like it has evolved. So,
Yeah.
yeah, come a long way.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, that's life, right? Just you start off not knowing what you don't know. Um, and then you kind of find out and you have to roll with the punches and figure out how to adapt, especially in such a personal career where you're working with different individuals. You're not going to be able to just prescribe something and it's going to work for everyone. Like you were saying earlier, what works for one person isn't going to work for the next. So,
And then even like really taking the time and figuring out what they need. Like that whole copy and paste thing, it might work for some beginners, but eventually you're gonna actually have to coach because they're gonna hit that wall, and then now it's like, okay, well, where's their weaknesses? Where are we getting hung up here, and why? Now we have to really figure that out and then program accordingly for that person, you know?
right.
Yeah, so that's what to me separates like the really good ones from these Instagram ones.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, with the accommodating resistance as well. You can't just throw bands on something because it looks cool and it builds. If somebody doesn't have a problem out of the hole, then that might not be what's best for them. You might have to flip them and, you know, make it harder at their lockout.
Like,
Me.
because that's right. So me, present. No, absolutely. Because there's quite a few people out here that'll come up to me and they're like, yeah, and that's what on any of the lifts, right? So, but we will, since we're talking about bench, speak on that. So it's like, all right, yeah, I keep getting hung up on lockout. I keep failing lockout, and I'm like, all right, well, and if I'm not coaching them, right, or like, so what are you doing? Oh, I'm just benching more. I'm like, what? I'm like, uh, it's like yes and no because no, like if benching more will obviously get you a little more, will get you more technically sound, especially if you're practicing the technique correct.
Right.
Um, but if, like you said, you don't have a problem off the chest, then why are you still working this range? You need to
Right.
work that top end. And that's
Yeah.
whether you put that as like your main mover or your secondary. Either way,
Mhm.
you got to work on that. Either way, you got to separate that from everything else and really try to strengthen that portion of that lift. And that's the only way you're going to do it. And trust me, I'm the variation guy. So if you want to use bench blocks, board presses,
Yeah.
dead presses, or pin presses set at your or as close to your sticking point as possible.
Mm.
Maybe ISO holds, pushing into the pins, anything like that. Like trust me, like I got the variations for decades, but
Yeah.
it
Got a
always
few
blew.
things up your sleeve.
But it always does blow my mind when people are like, yeah, I'm stuck around here and I can't break past it. So what are you doing? I'm just benching more. But all right, like you gotta work that range. And then if of course, as you know, if you maybe your lockout's strong, but you're weak off the chest. All right, let's start hitting pauses. Now let's
Yeah.
throw some accommodating resistance on it, especially bands, because when set up correctly, you're gonna have that tension in the bottom still as well. It might not be as much at the
Right.
top, but you're still gonna have that tension in the bottom. So that's really gonna force you to have to accelerate all the way through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I mentioned the bow bar. I mentioned the bow bar. It gets you way down
It
here, so
sucks, but it gets the job done.
it gets the job done. It does suck. Everybody's like, I hate you. And I'm like, well, you're gonna love me
Right. Yep.
later.
Yeah. Um okay, so I know since I know you, we've talked before about mindset in the gym and headspace and stuff like that. I know, you've had some stuff in your past and you're like a mental health advocate and all that. Can you talk me through how do you overcome a bad day where maybe something's going on in your personal life or something like that and you still have to go to the gym, you still have to train? Can you talk about how you overcome that or how you use that as fuel or um how you go about that?
So it's basically, since I've been doing this long nowadays, it's basically like I have to do this no matter what because I got my goals, and that's what it will become over time, so long as you learn to push past it. But I will say, when it comes to like mental health, right? you got to learn when you can still push and when you do might need to take a step back for yourself.
Mm.
And whether it's like you just need to be alone, process your thoughts, or maybe reach out for help. I personally have not done therapy, if I'm gonna be for real. If I'm gonna be for real. Doesn't mean that I don't think I need it, because like as you said, a lot of things in the past, been through a lot of stuff. I was that guy that starting off, I was very intense when it came to
Yeah.
this. So I would just bring it up and it would show. I would be very like, and that was one of the things that my coach even had dubbed me, a little after we started. He's like, yeah, this needs the personification of intensity, because like I would be the screamer, I would be the knock my head on the bar type of guy, and then
Yeah.
just get under it and use the rage to move it. But eventually, you do have to work on yourself and learn how to control it, because that can only take you to so far.
Yeah.
It's okay. Obviously, ultimately, we want to try to let things go. Um, and you pretty much do, so long as you're working on yourself. Like I've learned to let a lot of things go, or not let it like sit right here. It's back here. It's just you know deep down. Um,
Yeah.
but I have learned to do that as well as still kind of pull it back up.
Hmm.
Um, especially if I need that little extra like hate, a little extra hate,
Keep
and
it in your repertoire.
yeah, exactly. Like if I really need to turn it on, trust me, I can turn it on. But it's completely different. Like I'm very quiet now. I'm very calculated. Um, you you got to learn how to control that chaos. Use it to amp you up, but not over redline,
Yeah.
and still be able to think, because that's what a lot of this is too. It's not just some people have that brute strength where sure they could just get out of the bar and fuck. But some of us, like, we really, really, really have to dial everything in. We have to think
Yeah.
about what we're feeling. Like everybody talks about my squat nowadays because my descent is very slow.
Hmm.
But with that type of weight on you and being in gear, you have to be precise, because too far forward, too far back, you're gonna lose it. Um,
Yeah.
so feeling when I'm like accepting the weight, because a lot of people mentally, once you feel that weight, you're like, oh shit.
Yep.
But I try to teach people, and this is what I think personally. Like once I get under that weight, is I just accept it. Weight is weight, and then I shift my focus from that, because the more you think about that weight, you're just gonna be scared. You're not thinking about the right thing.
Yeah.
So once I accept it, I shift it back to okay, back is tight, chest is through, racing. All right, breaking up the hips, let my knees travel. What am I feeling in my feet? Am I feeling the weight too far this way, too far this way? Oh no, it's just right. I'm centered. Okay, I'm there. Keep going, open, and then just accelerate up once I get that command to come back up, or that cue from one of my partners to come back up, and
Yeah.
that's that. Um, but yes, like when it comes to the mental, this is very mental. This is very mental. This sport. Some
Yeah.
people just have that confidence, like Alejandro. He's just like he reeks of confidence, and I love that. That's why I like watching him. Like he's like, nah, I got this. But some
Yeah.
of us really have had to work on that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because, like I said, some people look at that number and they just get so thrown off. Um, but then, yeah, when it comes to the darkness, when it comes to your fuel, like it's okay to use the things from the past, but you got to learn how to like control it. You really do. It takes time.
Hmm.
It's not easy. Anybody that tries to tell anybody that goes through anything mentally, um, oh, just don't worry about it. Just don't think about it. Just oh, it's not that. No, no, that's not it. Because some of us really like it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And
Yeah.
honestly, those are the people like if they do that and it's kind of like a brush off. Those aren't the people you should be talking to.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like that's basically like I can't. exactly tell you all the steps. It's like, you kind of got to just work on it. You got to want to work on yourself with it and really learn, dig deep, reflect. Um, and then
Definitely.
yeah, and then like I said, like on an everyday thing, sure, it could be just a shit day. But I will say, if you truly, 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 in your heart of hearts, feel like you don't have it that day, then don't do it. Just
Mhm.
take the day. Give yourself that
Yeah.
mental break. Don't add more pressure onto yourself.
Yeah.
Take the day. Listen to your body, listen to your mind. Have a seat, lay down, go to sleep, whatever you need to do to kind of get past that. And then tomorrow, if you feel better, get after it, you know?
Yeah.
And then some days, sometimes people can just like, there's been days where I'm just like, nope, I just want to stay on my schedule. So I'm just going to go in and do it. And I might not feel great at all. And then once I get warmed up, things might be feeling good. And it kind of helps. And then
Yeah.
my mind shifts that I'm like, okay, I'm somewhat focused now,
Yeah.
you know, but you just gotta just listen to yourself, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. But I hear people brag about, oh, I haven't missed a training day in 3 years. Sometimes you have to, you know? And like you said,
It's
you have to
okay.
know yourself. That's okay.
It's
You're not going
okay.
to earn any awards by not missing a day. People will forgive you. Your body will thank you.
Your body will thank you. Your mind will thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like and like good on you if you've been pushing through and doing that. That's cool, but it's nothing to try to sit there and act like you're better than the next person that couldn't do
Right.
it. You know.
Yeah.
So that's where those people need to back a little bit and just relax. Because, like you
Right.
said, I'm not. I mean, I could go get you a cookie. Yeah, it's not that serious. Listen to yourself. Because
Yeah.
even I've had to pull out of a meet or out of a prep because my mental was so far off,
Mm.
and all my training was just like it was just a really hard time. Of
Mm.
course, I'm not going to get into detail about what, but it's like it was just a really hard time. I needed a lot to figure out a lot, and so I just and having a great coach that actually tells you when you're not sure, because sometimes to you like you're like, oh, I feel like a bitch if I don't go through with this, right?
Yeah.
But having a great coach to actually sit there and be like, it's okay. If you need to pull out, we can pull out. It's not going to be our last meet. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm pulling out. And honestly, it couldn't have been a better decision. And plus, it was the same meet that I was going to try to compete in the next day when I had a bunch of it was a Christmas carnival. And
Oh,
yeah, when I had probably like seven.
a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a lot. I had a lot.
Like in every single flight.
Every single flight. Every single flight.
Yeah, that
I couldn't
was,
sit down, and and then I had two people, and then decided to handle a third person on the next day.
of course. Yeah.
So that's where like things work out. Like you just gotta
Yeah.
just go with the flow. Like you said earlier, roll with the punches.
Yep.
Know when to know when to have a seat. Know when to step up. You know.
Yeah. And that's again where the trust and relationship with your coach goes a long way because it's so easy to get tunnel vision when you're in that prep mindset, when you're, you know, all the way from 9, 8, 7, 6 weeks out. And you've created this countdown, you have it marked in your calendar, and you're like me in a lot of ways where you want to be a person of your word and you want to, oh, I said I was going to do this, I paid the money, the whole nine. But sometimes it takes that outside sight to say it's okay. It's
So
not it's not the last powerlifting meet ever.
exactly. It's not
Um
it's not the end of the world for you. Doesn't mean it's over.
yeah.
You need a break.
Yeah. And taking care of yourself means more than just sticking to your plans.
Hmm. Absolutely. And then like that goes for, I mean, everybody should needs to learn how to take care of themselves. And even still, I like I try to push a little too much. And,
Mm,
thankfully I have my support system, my coach, my wife, my friends, even my athletes that have been with me for so long that they'll even say to me like, "Look, you need a break. Like
mm,
I think you need to, if you can, take a day off or two, um, because not even just for myself, but to better help everybody else. Like if I'm not
right.
okay, how am I going to help you?
Yep. Yeah,
just like
exactly.
other people say, if you don't love yourself, how you going to love anybody else? Right? It's the same thing.
Facts.
It's kind of that same thing of like, if you're not okay, how are you going to help anybody else the right way?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's important.
Definitely. I think that was most of the questions that I had. But to tie everything off, I've been asking the same question from everyone. So who I think you already kind of touched on it, but when you first got into powerlifting, who is that one person in your mind that sticks out, that you followed on social media and you're like, this is the person that's influential
Well, influential to myself or like in general,
to
like
yourself?
to me, Eric,
Yeah.
that's my guy. Like he was king of the 308s. And like
Mm,
he's just a monster of a man. So like yeah, so like I did mention um Dan Green, like watching him is what really, really, really piqued my interest. And I was just like, wow, like this is incredible.
yeah.
And then as I dug deeper into it and like started really learning, all the different athletes, like of course you got to go Ed Cohen, you learn about all these guys. But the one that I always say really, really influenced me a lot and like I watched the most was Louis Bridge. He was just nasty, like thousand plus pound squatter and reps, 500 plus pound bencher, and then 900, deadlift. Like it's wild. Like he was just, and it looks like he might be making a comeback. I would love to see that. I would love to see that. Just because like I definitely watched him a lot for the most part. And then of course as time went on, more and more guys started popping up. One of my favorite guys to watch nowadays for the raw guys is Jesus. He is just
Mm,
a tank,
yeah.
just
Yeah.
a tank, massive man.
Yeah. And so young too. So
So young.
hopefully a long way to go in his career as well.
Absolutely,
You
absolutely.
were
And there,
talking earlier too about equipped squats, like how you really control your descent. Those big guys, between Jesus and
Dan Bell is actually pretty. I mean, for one, he's what? He's probably like one of the highest totals, right? Or did somebody else take that? I can't.
I think Jesus took it.
Did he take it? He's either like on his way
The
or he took
raw.
it. Yeah, for
Yeah.
Raw, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, like Dan Bell too. Like he's great because like he's very controlled
Yep.
and just watching him because he's another one that's just a massive man and like he's got this narrow stance. I don't understand how he does it, and
No,
then
me
just
either.
blasts it up.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Jesus and Ray Williams, their descent is so slow that
But they're
you're
powerful.
just thinking, how are they going to get this back up? And then, pew!
Yeah,
It's like they're like winding up a clock, and then all of a sudden it just erupts. It's insane.
yeah, yeah. And that's one of the,
You would think that they had a squat suit on,
right, right.
right?
The way that they because that's basically like high school. I'm the single ply now, so it's like it's very just controlled. It's like even people say to me like, "There's no way he's getting this up," and then I blast it up. But like, yeah, watching those guys because I mean, obviously, I don't take away from whether you're equipped or raw, but their skill and their strength level is just insane, and their explosiveness out of that
Yeah.
hole because both of them they both squat very similar, very like wide stance,
Yep.
and they just sit into it and then just blast it, and then you're just like,
Yeah.
how, like, damn,
I know.
it's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate, you talking with me and sharing your knowledge and, always a pleasure to speak with you. I really appreciate you being here.
No, I appreciate you asking me to even do this. Like, truly, it's an honor. And we always love discussing this stuff and powerlifting and just strength and training and all this good. You know damn well there could be questions for days, and we can make a part two
I know. I
if you're down
know.
for that. I'm down
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.